Welcome to the Bill Cartwright Show. Our special guest today, NBA, very good player, Eddy Curry. Eddy, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
You know, and it's always interesting because, of course, I remember you very young. Growing up, you had a very special journey. But what I like to talk about your parents a little bit. Tell me about that.
Yeah, my parents, I was blessed, definitely came up a lot of the same ways that a lot of us came up, not having a whole lot. But I think unlike a lot of my friends, my parents, I came up with a two-parent household, I'm sorry. And I think that, that meant a lot to me. And I think that kind of translated to later on in my life, it was really important that I, brought my kids up the same way because I realized the importance of that. It was cool because, being a Chicago kid, I was able to play for the Bulls and my parents, they're from Chicago. So, it was just a really cool experience to share that with them. And I mean, they're still here with me now. And I cherish, every moment with them. I love it.
What did your dad do for a living?
My dad was a postal worker. Well, he did a couple of things. First, he used to drive trucks. He used to drive 18-wheelers when I was younger. And he would always drop me and my sister off in Mississippi in the summertime with my grandmother and just my mom's side of the family. I was always it's one of those things where it's you're happy because I get to ride in the truck and I get to go across the country and this and that. And he drops you off and then it's all right, I'll be back whenever I get a load that comes back through the other way. And I'm oh my goodness, I'm stuck in Mississippi. So that was that was always crazy. It was always a happy time and a sad time at the same time because you just never knew when you were going home. But it was always a really cool time. And, and I think that was one of the reasons that I was able to just kind of avoid a lot of the pitfalls that was happening in my neighborhood, honestly, because I didn't have a lot of idle time. I didn't stop going to Mississippi until basketball kind of took over, until I started playing AAU and I started getting really heavy into high school basketball. That's when those trips kind of tapered off a little bit. And then he worked for the post office, really hard worker and just really kind of instilled a lot of core values in me and really showed me how to just prioritize being a provider for my family.
Well, let's talk about that a little bit. Let's talk about what kind of kid were you growing up and when were you kind of introduced to basketball?
Man, Bill, I was crazy. I ain't gonna lie. I was crazy. But you know what? It's funny. I was really I don't know, man. I was into electronics a lot. I would get toys for Christmas and take them apart and try to put them back together. I was that kind of kid. I probably was a little annoying at times. Very respectful though. My mom didn't play. So the smallest infraction would be, oh man, it would be dealt with very fast. So I couldn't do too much, but I had a lot of fun growing up. Basketball was kind of introduced, I would say, around 7th or 8th grade. It's weird because I was always taller than everybody, especially around the 6th, 7th grade area. 5th, 6th, 7th grade, that's when I really started to kind of sprout. I think that all of the coaches and everybody was yo, you got to play basketball. You got to play basketball. And I was just kind of embarrassed because I didn't know how to play. I was just tall. And I remember joining the team in 7th grade and I would have games and stuff. And I would tell my mom yeah, I'm just staying after school to do some extra work or I'm going to my friend's house, but I would really be going to basketball games. And it was not until my aunt, her friend told her yeah, I'm going to your nephew's game today. And she's my nephew don't play basketball. And then my mom, she ended up telling my mom, and that's how they found out I actually played basketball. So that was actually kind of a crazy little story for me because, I really wasn't going to tell them. I was too embarrassed to have them come to the games and watch me play because I knew I wasn't that good. They were only putting me out there because I was the biggest guy. I was bigger than all the coaches, bigger than all the players. I was just the biggest guy on the court.
Now, as you progressed along, did there anybody who guided you along your basketball path early?
Yeah, absolutely. It came a time when I started to play AAU. I had a coach named Stan White, really, really instrumental in like a lot of just who I became early on. Because he took our AAU program and he made it more of a family environment. We were able to go to his house every weekend. Every summer, we looked forward to going to his house. And as I got better and better, and as our team got better and better, you know, that's when you get the shoe programs, the Nikes and the Adidas, and everyone wanted to come in and kind of break us up and send us here or there. And we were really adamant on like, no, we're gonna stick together. And he was, you know, fortunately, he was in a position to not need the money from those people. So he was able to say, you know what, if you guys want to stick together, we can stick together and I'll just do it all on my dime. And that's what he did. We were able to go to his house every weekend. We were able to really just hang out and get away from the inner city because all of my friends, all of my teammates were from the inner city. So we were able to really go and just really experience another side of life, honestly. And I think that really helped out a lot also. It kept like I said, early on, it was the trips to Mississippi that kind of kept me busy and kept my mind busy and kept me kind of refreshed and knowing just different things that were going on. And then later on, like in high school, it was my coach, Stan White, you know, being able to go to his house and being able to go to his, you know, other teammates' houses and stuff like that. Like just really to see that it was a different side of life other than, you know, Calumet City.
So you're about to leave high school, and amazingly enough, you had a decision to make. Am I going to go to college?
Right.
Or am I going to go to the NBA? And I'm just really curious because I had that kind of situation too. Where, if you were going to go to college, where were you going to go? And then how did you decide you were going to go into the NBA?
Yeah, well, honestly, I was committed to DePaul, but at the point when I committed to DePaul, I knew I wasn't going to go to college. Like, I don't know, it's kind of one of those things, man. I had a friend, a really close family friend, Donnie Kirksey. And at the time, if I was to go to college, I really wanted to go to Cincinnati. Like that was like, for some reason, I just loved Cincinnati. I love how they played. I love the uniforms. They had the Jordan uniforms. I just always saw myself at Cincinnati. And my dad was like, "You're not going to Cincinnati." He felt like the image of Cincinnati just didn't fit with where he wanted me to go. He was like, "Man, you should go to like North Carolina or something like that." And when I started taking my visits and having coaches come into the house and talk to me, I could remember I sat with North Carolina, and the coach came in and he's like, you know, Eddie, honestly, like if you're not gonna come, if you're not 100% sure you're gonna go to school, basically like don't commit to us because we really want to get somebody that's gonna come to us. We don't want to just have you. We don't want to just say you're gonna come if you know you're not gonna come to school. And I respected that. So I was like, you know what? I'm not gonna waste your time. I know it's a high probability that I won't go to college after high school. So we ended up talking to Pat Kennedy and the people at DePaul, and I'm like, you know what? I'm pretty sure I'm not going to come to school, but I think that, you know, my name holds a lot of weight in Chicago, and if I can kind of get some other guys and shed some light on the program, you know, one of my big childhood heroes was Quentin Richardson and Bobby Simmons and those guys. So I'm like, you know what? If I could steer some guys to DePaul, man, I think it's a good program, and I would hope to be able to just keep the Chicago brand going. So that's kind of what I did. I committed to DePaul, but I knew I wasn't going to go. I knew I wasn't going to step foot on campus, and I would say I knew that for sure. After, I mean, I kind of felt it going into senior year once I started seeing like BJ, and I would start seeing Jerry Krause at my games. I'm like, oh yeah, I'm not going to college. So I kind of knew it then, But when I got MVP at a McDonald's game, that's when I was like, yeah, I'm definitely going to take this next step.
So once you made that decision, did you know you were going to go to Chicago?
No, I didn't. And it's crazy how that happened because like I said, my childhood hero was Quentin Richardson. So that year, the Clippers had the second pick in the draft. So I'm just like, I don't even want to go first. I want to go second in the draft to the Clippers so I can go play with D Miles, because Darius Miles was another great friend of mine and somebody who I looked up to. I'm like, I want to go play with Quentin and Darius. That's all I cared about. I was training with Tim Grover, Michael Jordan's trainer. So of course he's like, nah, you going to the Wizards. Like, we're going to get you ready to go work out with MJ, and you're going to go to the Wizards. And so I worked out with the Wizards a few times. And then I worked out with the Bulls. I worked out with I think I worked out with the Atlanta Hawks. I worked out with the Clippers. And I think that was it. And I think so the whole night of the draft, I'm like, man, I want to go to the Clippers. I didn't care. Kwame got called number one. He went number one to the Wizards. And I was like, okay, I don't care. Cool. I still want to go to the Clippers. I wasn't even thinking about Chicago, honestly. And then my agent came to me right before they called, right like during the middle, like kind of right after they called Kwame, my agent came to me and was like, they're not going to pick you to the Clippers. They're going to pick Tyson to the Clippers. That's what he said. They're picking Tyson. He said, you can go number 3 to Memphis, or you can go to Chicago at number 4. And I was hurt. I was devastated. I'm like, man, all right, I'm not going to Memphis. I guess I'll go to Chicago. Like, that literally was what I said. Like, I'm so young and just so like, I had no idea. Like, I'm like, of course, thinking back, I should have been like, man, I want to go to Chicago. That should have been the number one place that I should have picked. But I just wasn't thinking that way. I was like, man, I want to go to the Clippers. I really want to go to the Clippers. And then the fact that Tyson went to the Clippers, and, you know, coming up in high school, it wasn't like it is today, where it's like you got Instagram and stuff like that, so you can see these other kids. I only ever saw Tyson, like, I saw him 2 times in high school. I saw him, we played each other in high school at this big game called the KMOX Shootout in St. Louis. And then I saw him, where else did I see Tyson? I saw him at an AAU tournament, but we didn't play each other. Our teams didn't play, but I was able to watch his game. So the whole year, like, I mean, I would say from sophomore year to senior year, you only saw people's names in the newspaper when they would rank us, like, and in magazines, the top high school players. So I would always see Tyson Chandler, Eddy Curry, Tyson Chandler, like number 1, number 2, number 3. Like, so he almost became like an enemy of mine. It was like, you know, I was chasing him and he was chasing me. So when I got the MVP at a McDonald's game, I'm like, oh, I'm number 1. Like, they're chasing me now. Him, Kwame Brown, I'm like, I'm the guy. So when he went number 2 to the Clippers, I was hurt. And it was just more of a reason for me to not like him. I'm like, oh, I hate this guy, Tyson. I hate Tyson. And it was crazy because right after they called Pau Gasol's name for number 3, my agent says they're actually gonna trade Elton Brand for Tyson Chandler, and you and him both are gonna go to Chicago. And I was like, what? So they called my name, and I remember being in the back, and I remember seeing Tyson back there with his Clipper hat on, and his agent walked up to him and passed him a Bulls hat, and Tyson was like, what are you talking about? And I saw him take his Clippers hat off and put the Chicago Bulls hat on, and I was like, wow, that just happened. Like, that's crazy. Like, I couldn't even believe it. So that was it was a crazy moment. And you know, but right after that, I was, you know, we became best friends. Me and Tyson are like I love Tyson, man. He's a really, really incredible person, incredible friend. And but yeah, at the time, right before that though, I wanted to go to the Clippers, man.
So you are now a Chicago Bull. Talk about some of the changes that you had to make after you got drafted.
Um, it was funny because, I spent my whole life in Chicago, but I had never went past downtown. Never. Like I never, in my mind, nothing existed past downtown because I had only been downtown and I only been down there maybe like twice in my whole life. I went to Navy Pier and I went to a Sox game or something like that one time. But like, so just geographically, like Chicago ended at downtown. So like being picked up and going to the training facility out in at the Berto Center, like that was another world for me. That was something that I had never experienced before. And then going there every day and then seeing the trophies in the trophy case and just that was a different, I don't know, man. That was like, it took a while to get adjusted to that. It was very intimidating to say the least. But the Bulls they made it feel like family. They made it feel like home. I got comfortable really fast. And like I said, having another high school kid there with me and realizing that he was coming from across the country to come do this. So I realized right away how lucky I was because anytime I had an issue, anytime I just didn't feel comfortable, I could always go back home. I was always back home. I would take it took about 45 minutes to get back home, but I would always go back to my mom's. At that point, I bought her a house. So I would always go over there and see her. I was always able to see my friends. And I was able to just kind of slowly make that adjustment into being a professional because, it was kind of early in the summer and I still was able to have some time before the season kicked off to really kind of get my feet planted firmly and just kind of just wrap my head around what was going on.
Okay, so you got your own place.
Mm-hmm.
You got to get yourself fed. You've got to be a professional person. So you've got banking. You've got all these other responsibilities along with playing basketball. Talk about that transition because you're an adult now.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I had a lot of people doing everything for me, honestly. Like I had people in place. I think everyone was really kind of all hands on deck with me because they realized this was a unique situation. And at the time, it happened before where guys were coming out of high school. But for the most part, it wasn't something that everyone was doing. So they knew I was still a child pretty much. And without that college experience, without that gradual, like, okay, move away from the house and, balance a checkbook and, be able to just make smart decisions. Everything I did, like, was really, the impact of any infraction was way, way bigger, way more magnified because I was in the NBA and I was playing for the Chicago Bulls. Like, this was a storied franchise. This was, not long. MJ was still echoing in the halls. So it was just like, it was a lot of responsibility. A lot of which I didn't understand. So I had a lot of people around. I had an accountant, I had agents and stuff like that. My agent would send someone from the agency out there to kind of really look after me. My parents were still playing a big part in everything that was going on. I don't think I bought a house right away. I bought a house for my parents, but I was actually staying at the Residence Inn right next to the Berto Center. I was there for a long time. Jamal Crawford was coming off of ACL surgery, so he was staying there also. So that became like my best friend instantly because I was always at his room and he was just kind of teaching me the ropes. He was telling me everything that was going on and what to expect. And it was just really cool to see him because I saw Jamal the year before when I was in high school. I came to a Bulls game. And he was like one of the first people I saw. He knew who I was. And I was like kind of blown away at the fact that Jamal Crawford knew who I was. And he's talking to me and we just became friends right away from when I was in high school. We didn't talk a lot over that first year, but when I got there, to Chicago, that was that familiar face for me. And he was living right there at the Residence Inn with me, at like right next door to me. So I was able to really get adjusted because of that. Like he made me understand everything that was going on. He helped me to just kind of internalize what was happening and just how big of a situation that this was. And I think that definitely helped me a lot.
Talk about your first practice, and I want you to talk about your first game. You remember that?
My first practice.
First game.
My first game. Well, I remember in the first game, I just remember everything moving so fast. Like it was like the fastest. For a long time, I couldn't find a rhythm. I'm like, everything I was doing was too fast. I was always off balance. I was always, it just, I don't know. I just couldn't put it together. And I wasn't playing a whole lot. I would play in little spurts and things like that. And it just was a lot going on. I had Brad Miller playing in front of me. I had Dalibor Bogarich. You see these guys, man, and when you're watching them on TV in high school and you feeling like, man, I'll kill these guys. The moment I get a chance, I'm gonna kill these guys. But then you play against them in practice and you realize they're here for a reason. And it's like, wait a minute, all these moves that I thought I had, they're not working. Like none of this stuff is working anymore. Like what's going on? And you can't just jump over everybody and you can't outrun anybody. And it's like, it's the craziest thing. It's the craziest, most humbling thing that you experience as a player, especially coming out of high school, is you realize the speed of the game, the pace of the game, and just how smart coaches are. They're not going to let you just keep, like, if something works a couple times, you're like, okay, cool, that works. I'll just go to that. I'll just go to my right-hand hook. No, it's not going to keep working because eventually a coach is going to say, hey, he's going to start chewing the player out and they're going to take it away. And on top of that, you got to guard them on the other end. And you got to rebound the ball. And you got to remember all of the sets and everything and different coverages. At the time, we had Vince Carter, who was prime Vince Carter. We had prime Allen Iverson. We had we had some real guys in the league that required special defenses and special coverages that you got to be ready for. And you had Shaq. And you had it was crazy. It was a lot. So for me, it was definitely a learning experience. That first game, it was humbling for sure. All summer I felt like, man, I should be starting. I should be coming out. I should be starting. That first game, I was like, yeah, maybe I need to take my time and figure this thing out because, I don't – this is not going to be as easy as I thought it was for sure.
So talk about when you felt like you were making real progress and – what did you feel like you need to work on?
I feel like I progressed every year in Chicago. I feel like, but I feel like when Scott Skiles came there, he kind of demanded a whole, it was different. It was scary and it was different because I remember when they hired him, I remember being in I was in the cafeteria eating with Jamal in the little kitchen that they had in the back. I remember me and Jamal sitting there eating, and we talking about man, they just hired Scott Skiles, man. I heard this dude is crazy, man. I heard this crazy, heard this guy is just nuts. And we talking about him like crazy, and we turn around and he's standing right behind us. And I'm like, oh my God. And that was like our first introduction to Scott Skiles. Hey guys, how you doing? I'm like, oh my goodness. So that was crazy to me. He really brought I would imagine that this is what college felt like. Just how he was really micromanaging everybody. Like you couldn't, there was no room to do anything other than what he wanted you to do. And I can remember going into, how we would shoot around before games and stuff. I can remember shooting around before a game one time. And sometimes you would go out there, man, and you just would feel, I don't know, you would miss a lot of shots and stuff like that. You just wasn't feeling it before the game. And he started recording people shooting before the games. I don't even know where the camera was. It was one of the big cameras in the stadium. And he would show that right before we would go on the court. Hey, Eddie, this is what you were doing before the game. this is, hey Jamal, this is what you were doing before the game. And it was crazy. He would just pick a random guy. So at that point, you never knew if he was going to show, if he was watching you. And because of that, you just had to go hard. You had to go 100 miles an hour. You had to give everything you had. And I think that really made me better, though. That really made me better. I knew the first few plays of the game were always going to go to me. And I knew that if I didn't score or make something good happen, it wasn't going to come back to me for a while. I knew that the first play of the third quarter was going to come to me, the first few plays, and the same thing. If it didn't work, he wasn't coming back. He demanded me, he demanded that I rebound. He demanded that I play defense. Like, he really just demanded a lot of me. And I think that definitely made me better. And it made me, I won't say take things serious, because I always took it serious, but it just made me realize, like, wait a minute, I'm a professional. This is professional basketball. And you got to be able to, on command, on a dime, just turn it on and keep it on. And that really made me, and I think a lot of the guys, it made a lot of us better.
So I thought you had a great learning experience in Chicago. So what did you feel like leaving Chicago and going to New York?
Man, it's funny, man, like being in Chicago, and I remember when we would go to New York and play, we would always stay at the Plaza Hotel. And it was always old and creepy to me. Like, to me, the Plaza Hotel always kind of personified what New York was, to me, how I saw it. And it was like this rustic beauty on the outside, but then you get in it and it's just like, it's still rustic. It's not really new. It's just old. It's like an old shell. And the rooms would just creep me out, because like in New York, they don't really tear a whole building down. They just kind of like make it look a little newer on the inside. But it's always little remnants in there to let you know this is an old building. This is not, like, this is history. This is an old building. It's just a different vibe out there. I don't know. The garbage is on the streets. Like, there's no alleys out there. Like, in Chicago, we got alleys. So you walk around and the neighborhoods are clean because the garbage is behind the houses. Well, out here, the garbage is on the streets. Like, you got big rats moving around. And it was just the total opposite of how I grew up. And it just really made me not like New York, honestly. Like, when I was coming up, I just hated going there. I would go to the Plaza. They had those round bathtubs in the bathrooms with the little old school curtains that went around. And it just reminded me of a scary movie. I couldn't sleep in those hotels. Like, I just hated New York. So when it came time to leave Chicago, and that was like really the only option I had was New York. Like, I felt like it was draft night all over again. And I didn't get picked to the Clippers. And I'm going to a team that I didn't think I would go to. And like, I had to I had to wrap my mind around that. At the time, I had a wife. At the time, I had children. So I did feel like I wasn't going by myself. I feel like if I was going by myself, it would have been a lot harder to get adjusted to. And also, Jamal was there. So I knew Jamal was there. Quinn Richardson was there. So I knew that. So that made things easier. So as I got my mind wrapped around that, I was like, okay, cool, I could do this. So I went out there, actually met them at training camp. And then after training camp, we went back to New York, because training camp was held in South Carolina. So after that, I went back to the city. That was like my first time going there. And it was a whirlwind, honestly. It was just a lot. It was a lot to deal with. Just the hand and the constant, in Chicago, you always had someone that kind of guided you through everything. Like, I got used to that. I got used to having someone talking me through things and explaining things and just asking me, hey, are you okay? It was none of that in New York. Everyone was self-sustaining. Everyone had their own way of doing things. Everyone, like, if you ask someone, they would tell you, but it's like, I'm not an ask person. I need somebody to come talk to me and just say, hey, are you okay? Hey, I noticed you're doing this like this. You should do it like this. And it wasn't like that in New York. It was more like trial and error. There was a lot of trial and error. And it just forced me to grow up really fast. Like, I felt like I had matured a lot in Chicago. But I wasn't mentally, everything happened so fast in New York. Everything just kind of really sped up for me.
Now, where'd you live in New York?
I lived in White Plains. I lived in, what's the name of it? Purchase.
So you live close to practice?
Yes, I live close to practice. It's crazy because Isaiah Thomas was in my neighborhood. Quinn Richardson was in my neighborhood. Stephon Marbury was in my neighborhood. So it's crazy. I mean, even that alone, like, the price of properties out there was astronomical. My first year there, they showed me, they put me in a house. I was paying $35,000 a month for rent. And I'm like, are you serious? But everyone was staying here. Like, everyone was here. Everyone was paying that kind of money to live over there. And I'm just like, okay, I guess that's the norm. In Chicago, I was paying like, I don't know, $3,500 a month to live where I was living in Chicago. Everything was just crazier. It was way crazier. You would leave in Chicago after dinner. I mean, after practice, we had the chef in there and stuff like that. They had the chef in New York too. But you would walk out and you would grab a meal and you would go to your car in Chicago. But in New York, you would walk out and they would have jewelers come in and they would have a whole display set out. You couldn't avoid it. It was just there. It was just a bunch of diamonds and necklaces and rings and all of that. They would just bring people in and here, just grab what you want and here's the invoice, just sign off. And it just seemed so easy. It's one of those things that you had to learn. Like, man, you can't keep doing this. This is going to be bad. You got to walk past that stuff and don't even look at it, But that was New York, though. New York was a really fast pace. You really got to have your stuff together when you playing for New York. Well, at least back then. I don't know how it is now, but back then when it was just a different way. It was a different way, man. And you had older guys, you had veteran guys who probably wanted that type of stuff there because they knew how to balance, their financials and things like that and what they could handle and what they couldn't handle. But then you had guys like me, you had younger guys who were used to having people like kind of not baby them, but they, just really kind of guide you. You had guidance. And I didn't have that guidance there. It was just kind of like I had to figure it out. That the stove is hot. Let me see. Oh, yeah, it's definitely hot. It was kind of that type of thing in New York.
So you're in New York and now you're off to Miami. Now tell me the difference between all three of those places: Chicago, New York, Miami.
Man, I think Miami was a lot like Chicago, but it was very hard adjusting to Miami, like coming from New York, especially how it happened, because there was a little gap in there because it was a lockout. And so I didn't have we didn't even know that the season would begin. So it was really like at first you started out the summertime, like I'm gonna keep working out so I can be in basketball shape when the season starts. Then the lockout happens. Then you start hearing like, oh, they're probably not gonna complete the rest of the season. And then out of nowhere, they're like, okay, yeah, we're going like the season's gonna start. And I remember Pat Riley reaching out. He called literally as soon as the lockout ended, he called me and says, "Are you ready?" I'm like, yeah, I'm ready. And I knew I wasn't, but I'm like, yeah, I'm ready. So he ended up, I want to say he came out he came out, Mickey Arison came out, Spo came out, like a lot of people came out, all of the people came out, everybody from their staff came out to work me out in Chicago. And I believe, I want to say, my memory is really bad, but I remember working out for them. And I remember just agreeing that, you know what, let's not come right now. Because if I'm not mistaken, like I want to say, and I could be messing this timeline up, but I remember working out for them at one point, but the season was going on. Because at first I was going to come and just join them for the playoffs. Then the season was, and then I was like, you know what, let's just come next year and give you a whole year. Let's give you a whole year in Miami. I think that's kind of how it happened. And then I went to Miami, and yeah, man, it was completely different. It was completely different. I remember going in and talking to Pat Riley when I got to Miami and going into his office, and it just felt like a scene out of The Godfather, man. It was crazy. He had this big, like, beautiful office with glass windows overlooking the court, and it was just dark, and it was only light around his desk. Like everywhere else was dark. You were just in the shadows, and you're just watching him. And he's got all his rings and stuff, and he's got the hair slicked back. This is Pat Riley right in front of you. So I'm like, wow. And he's just the nicest guy ever, but he's calmly telling you just the culture, explaining to you like what the expectations are and just the gravity of the situation that you just signed on to be a part of. And that was really cool for me. I went into that season knowing that this was going to be unlike anything I ever been a part of. Obviously playing with LeBron, knowing the light and the attention that he brings on the team, but just really more so just knowing the physical demand that would be demanded, that would be expected from me. And that started right away. So, before you can even touch the court, you had conditioning drills and all type of stuff that you had to pass before you can get on the court. And that was it was an incredible experience for me. Having Pat come in and talk to us, every time he would come talk to us on the court, guys had to sit down on the floor against the wall. And I'm looking around, I'm looking at Juwan Howard, I'm looking at LeBron James and D Wade and Udonis Haslem, all sitting down. So of course I sit down like, man, this is what it is. And you got, Pat walking in front of you and talking to you. And it was just a humbling experience. You were around greatness at all times. You were expected to be great at all times. It was really a high standard. And you didn't want to let anybody down. And like I said, it really felt like Chicago. Because coming into Chicago, and I don't know if this is just from me being a Chicago kid, you just knew, you felt like you were letting the whole city down when you would lose a game. And we had seasons where we lost a lot of games in Chicago. And people were still coming to the games, man. They were still coming to the games. They were still rooting for you. They were still cheering for you. They would still treat you nice when you walked around the city. In New York, you lose the game, man. You don't want to really go out. You can't go to a restaurant after you lose a game in New York. We don't have plans to go to a restaurant. Like, all right, after the game, we're going to go eat at this place, that place. Man, we lose that game. It's like, no, we're going home. We are going home. There's no dinner tonight. We'll eat hot dogs or something tonight. We'll cook something at the house. We're not going out. And it was just a difference. Like, it was a difference. I would say it was a night and day difference between Chicago and New York. And I would say Miami and Chicago were kind of similar just in expectations. But the discipline required to play for the Heat was unmatched. It was unlike anything I've ever experienced.
So talk about what was it like to win the championship?
That was incredible. Especially because it was moments where I thought we wouldn't even get out the East because it's just, we played against Boston. We got down in that series and you saw LeBron just, I don't know, man, you saw him transform. It was amazing, man, to see somebody like to really witness it firsthand. like somebody just refusing to lose, man. Like, it's crazy. I mean, I know you saw it, obviously, but like I had never saw anything like that. I saw it in moments. There was games where like Jamal would get hot and, you know, he would score 50 or so points. And that was crazy to see. But to see somebody do it in the biggest moments, man, that was like, I don't know, man. I never seen nothing like that. And it makes you just really respect like LeBron and just those type of players that can do that. Because, I mean, you watch a guy who just single-handedly says, you know what, we're not going home. We're going to win this game. And once you see somebody do that enough times, you expect to win it. I expected us to win a championship that year, and we won it.
So after you won a championship, what did you think about it? I mean, did you feel like, hey, finally, championship? I got a ring.
I thought it was cool. Honestly, I thought it, but I really didn't, it didn't hit me right away, you know, because it was just such an emotional roller coaster the whole season. We were riding on just a really high wave the whole season. And so when it happened, I was more almost sad that the season was over because I got so used to being around these guys. I got so used to just being in a winning atmosphere. I hadn't done that before. So going around Miami, not having to pay for meals, not having to pay to go anywhere, and just to be kind of just celebrated, like that was something that I hadn't experienced before. So when we won it, it was an incredible achievement. It was something that, you know, they can never take away from you. You'll always be a part of the history books. But at the same time, for me, that kind of represented the end of something. And because I never was in a situation like that again after that. And it was just like one of those things where it's like, man, did this really happen? It almost felt like a dream. It honestly still kind of feels like a dream that happened. Because it was such a magical moment. You know, you work very hard to put yourself in that position. And then you have this long career where it's like, you almost have to shift your expectations, kind of. You know, you go into a season and it doesn't really become about like, okay, we're going to win a championship. I want to win a championship this year. Sometimes the season expectations are, let's try to make it to the playoffs. Let's just try to make it to the playoffs. And you go from that to being on a team where it's like, just making it to the playoffs isn't enough. Just making it out the East isn't enough. And you got a guy like LeBron whose whole legacy is depending on him winning the championship. That's a whole different type of vibe. That's a whole different type of like expectation.
Yeah. So Miami, all of a sudden now, where are you going? You're going to Dallas?
Yeah, well, okay, so it was crazy because I ended up going to Dallas's training camp. And then I think did I go to Dallas first or San Antonio? I think I went to Dallas first. Yeah, I went to Dallas first.
I think so.
Yeah, I went to Dallas. You know, it was a long time ago, man. Like since my last game in the NBA, man, I did some stints in China, but I really kind of put all that behind me. You know, you miss a lot of family time, man. I got 6 kids. So when everything slowed down for me, I started really realizing how much I missed, how many birthdays I missed, how many first steps, first words, all of that stuff. You miss a lot. People don't understand, like, you know, they'll watch us play a back-to-back, like, oh, they got Philly tonight, and then the next day they're going to play this, they're going to play somebody on the West Coast, they're going to play Golden State. To them, they just tuning in on the TV. To us, it's like, man, you're going to play a game, you're going to say goodbye to your family at the arena, you're going to go straight to the airport, you're going to fly across country, and then you're going to get up early the next morning, you're going to go to shoot around. You're not really going to have the time to really talk too much on the phone because now you're locked into your schedule and everyone's got their own specific way that they like to do things. I need my nap right after shoot around because I need about 4 or 5 hours of sleep. I'm gonna wake up, I'm gonna go to the arena, I'm gonna play another game. And then after that, I'm gonna go back home if we're not on a road trip. It might be a West Coast like type of road trip. So there's no going home after that. And people don't understand that. You miss a lot. So going to Dallas, man, like I was really hoping to make the team and I made it pretty far and I didn't make the final cut. And that was cool with me. I mean, it was cool with me because I was able to actually go to China, make some really good money in China, but just kind of experience that. I had never been out the country before like that. I had never been around somewhere where everyone didn't speak English. So just learning the culture over there in China, man, being around and realizing that the Chinese food that we eat here in America is not the Chinese food that's over there. And just, it made me appreciate home. It made me miss home. I was homesick. And when I got home, I really started to just kind of engulf myself in the home life, the family life, being around my kids, being around my wife, us learning each other. You know, being around my wife and her being around me every day, you realize that we didn't know each other how we thought we knew each other. And they say, you know, a lot of people get divorced after they play. And you can see why it happens because you're around, you got to relearn each other. And a lot of stuff that I was doing gets on her nerves. Some stuff she does gets on my nerves, but me more than her. And, you know, we had to just learn each other, had to appreciate each other and figure out a way to just keep this thing going. And we were able to do that. So, yeah, I mean, Dallas and, you know, San Antonio and all of those places, like that was really a cool part in my life. It was a different experience. It was me going to a team, not knowing if I was going to make a team. And I had never done that before. I had never been in that type of situation before. So, you know, that was different. I didn't make it. There was no hard feelings there. But yeah, we move on and we take those lessons in life and we just, you know, keep our head high and we move on to the next journey.
So you're in China and if I remember this right, did you play for 2 teams over there?
Yeah, I played for 2 teams. I played for I couldn't tell you the name of the team, but yeah, I played for one of the teams. I think it starts with a Z. And then I came home and a couple years, a year later or so, or however it was, I played for another team over there. Yep.
So how did you know you were done playing?
Man, it just hurt too much. You know what I mean? Like, and I think China helped to like expedite that process because you over there, man, you don't have the training staff that we have over here. It's different, man. You don't have the trainers. You don't have hardwood floors to practice on. You don't have, you know, a massage therapist. You don't have a lot of the things and a lot of the, like I depended on certain things to keep going when I was here, medical staff and all that type of stuff. And when that wasn't there and it was still the same grind, because you were still expected to play a lot, and a whole lot of basketball. You were expected to practice every time. It was super cold over there during that time. And my knees I'm like, you know what? I'm tired of this. I'm tired of my knees blowing up on me. I'm tired of, you know, I'm tired of the grind. So that was pretty much, I knew that it had come to an end for me.
So talk about now. Talk about your family a little bit and talk about what you're doing now.
Yeah, so my family is really cool. Like I always had this, I've always been a family guy. I've always had this vision of just having a big family and us all living together under one roof. I thought for a while, I thought it was unrealistic and I thought that maybe it couldn't happen just because everyone was on separate pages. But, you know, I've been blessed to actually see it become a reality to where like I got all my children here living with me. You know, my parents are out here and we just, you know, we just have fun with each other. We you know, I'm a very, I appreciate a lot. I'm very aware of things around me. I realize that, you know, we lose a lot of people, especially with this pandemic, man. People have been dying and stuff like that. And life is very short. So I cherish the moments that I have, you know, with my family as my children get older and, you know, prepare for college and just prepare to start their own life. I realize that they're not going to always want to, you know, be here under my roof. I got my own rules that they don't, they don't always like, but, you know, ultimately, man, it's an incredible thing. You know, like I said in the beginning, like, that's how I grew up. I grew up with two parents in the house, and I appreciated that because I realized that that was not a given. For one reason or another, you know, parents don't always stick together, and they're not always able to work it out. Or other things may take one of the parents away from the household. We've been blessed to have a two-parent household and provide that for the kids. And I mean, it's just one of the things we look forward to. You know, I look forward to, you know, picking the kids up at 2:50 every day. You know, I look forward to cooking dinner. I look forward to going to AAU practice. I look forward to, you know, playing video games. I consider myself a young parent. I still love video games. So I play video games with my kids. My wife and I have a podcast now, the Caramel and Cheddar podcast, relationship podcast. It's really cool. And to do that with her, man, to be able to, you know, have an idea of a podcast and then be able to sell the idea, and then it comes out and we're doing this together. For a long time, I was the provider. I was the sole provider. And now I'm able to, you know, kind of create opportunities with my family now, not just me being the provider, but doing it with my family, being able to show my kids just the byproduct of hard work and perseverance and prayer and things like that, man. To me, those are, you know, just some of those lessons and some of those just cool things that happen after basketball that you're able to take your lessons, your discipline that you apply to basketball, you apply that same discipline now, teamwork and just setting goals. And, you know, a lot of the stuff that you taught me, honestly, just you able to apply that to your real life and you're able to see things come to fruition. And, you know, I think for them, it's a very valuable lesson in perseverance and just not allowing yourself to quit. You don't allow yourself to quit. I mean, they were a part of this journey. A lot of the ups and downs, they don't really remember. They don't remember the good. They don't remember the bad, but they do have the internet. So, I mean, I'm sure that they know some things here and there. They don't come to me about it, but, you know, I think I do a good job at really showing them that this is real life. What I am here before you is real life. And that's what we kind of go off of.
Well, Eddie, that's just awesome, you know, and thank you so much for being on the show. You know, it's just so great talking to you after all these years, and wow, what a journey you've had. It's been really remarkable. So, you know, I'm just really proud of you.
Man, thank you, man.
Family.
When I know when Tony sent me the picture of you, man, my face just lit up. Like, you just are one of those people, man. I don't know, man. You just you run into these people, man. You meet these people. God puts these people in your life, and I just feel like, man, it just was so refreshing to see you, to be on the call with you yesterday and see you and see Pete, man. Like, that was a really special time in my life. And honestly, I don't just tell you this because I'm talking to you now. Like, I really appreciate you, man. I appreciate just the guidance, man. I appreciate the lessons that you put into me, whether you know it or not, man. It really helps me throughout my life, throughout my everyday journeys, man, throughout my fatherhood, throughout my everything. I find myself always coming up with some lesson. It's always, and I don't even do it on purpose with the kids. It'll just come out, you know, something that you showed me, something that you told me, something that maybe Pete said. Like I think you're very inspirational, and just, man, I just appreciate you, man. You're just an incredible person. I'm just extremely blessed to even know you, man. Like, you're a legend. You're a real legend, man, in this game. You're a legend to all of us, man. I appreciate you, man. I really do.
Well, thank you. That's just really kind. And let's stay in touch. Hey, look, I'm easy, man. I'm here in San Francisco. I'm in Chicago a lot. I got my own schedule. We can talk anytime.
Okay, I appreciate it. I'm gonna hold you to it.
You're gonna have to do that. Call me up.
Okay.